Captain Lee Daho stared at the massive space station floating before his ship. The structure was bigger than any city on Earth, made of materials that seemed to glow with their own light. Strange ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports. Some looked like giant insects, others like flowing metal, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. "First time seeing aliens up close," said Dr. Park Hyojin, standing beside him on the bridge. She was Earth's best expert on alien cultures, though she had only studied them from far away until now. Her hands shook slightly as she held her translation device. "Same here," Lee Daho replied. He tried to keep his voice steady, but inside he felt nervous. Earth had just learned to travel faster than light 5 years ago. Now they were meeting civilizations that had been flying between stars for thousands of years. The radio crackled with an alien voice. The translation came through as cold and formal. "Human vessel New Dawn, you are cleared to dock at Bay 94. Do not deviate from the assigned path. Any unexpected movement will be seen as hostile." Engineer Kim Taemin looked up from his control panel. "Their technology is incredible," he whispered. "I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before, and the way they're scanning our ship, it's like they know everything about us already." The docking process was smooth but intimidating. Robotic arms guided their small Earthship into a bay that could have held 50 vessels their size. As they walked through the airlock, Lee Daho felt like a child visiting a library built for giants. The corridor they entered was enormous. The walls showed moving pictures of star systems and alien worlds. Strange beings walked past them, some floating, some crawling, some moving in ways that hurt to look at. None of them paid attention to the 3 humans. A tall, lizard-like creature approached them. Its scales were deep red and its eyes glowed yellow. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. "I am Overlord Vextar of the Valkyrie Dominion. You are the humans we have heard about." Dr. Park Hyojin stepped forward and bowed politely. "We are honored to meet you, Overlord Vexatar. I am Dr. Park Hyojin, and this is Captain Lee Daho and Engineer Kim Taemin. We represent Earth and all of humanity." Vexatar's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth and what might have been a smile. "Interesting. Your species is smaller than expected, and you have no natural weapons, no thick skin, no special abilities that we can detect. How did you manage to develop space travel?" "We worked together," Lee Daho answered. "We learned from our mistakes and kept trying new things." "How primitive," Vextar said. "Follow me. The council is waiting." They walked through the station for what felt like hours. Kim Taemin secretly recorded everything he saw studying the alien technology. The walls seemed to be made of living metal. The lights had no visible source. Even the air felt different, cleaner and somehow more alive than Earth's atmosphere. The council chamber was a vast sphere with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. Hundreds of alien beings filled the space. At the center, 5 massive chairs held the most important leaders. Vextar took his place in one of the central chairs. Next to him sat a being that looked like living crystal, its body constantly shifting and reflecting light in impossible ways. "I am High Counselor Elthis of the Thisseron Collective," it said. Its voice sounded like music, but cold and mathematical. "We have calculated the probability of your species contributing meaningfully to galactic civilization. The result is 0.003%. A third being looked like a cross between an ant and a tank, with multiple arms and glowing eyes. "I am War Marshal Krognak of the United Hives. Your military capabilities are laughable. A single one of our warrior drones could defeat 100 of your soldiers." The 4th council member was a shifting cloud of energy that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Ambassador Lyranth of the Energy Collective. We are curious about your emotional patterns, but they appear chaotic and unpredictable." The 5th chair held a being that looked almost human, but with silver skin and no hair. "I am Speaker Zaldrun of the New Worlds Alliance. We have seen many species join our galactic community. Usually they bring something valuable. Superior technology, powerful psychic abilities, useful biological adaptations. What do humans offer?" Dr. Park Hyojin took a deep breath. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times. "We offer our perspective, our creativity, and our willingness to learn. Every problem has many solutions. We believe that working together, all of our species can achieve more than any one species alone." The council chamber filled with sounds that might have been laughter from a dozen different species. Vextar's yellow eyes gleamed. "How touching. But the galaxy is not a place for touching speeches. It is governed by strength, capability, and natural superiority. The strong protect and guide the weak. This has been the way for 10,000 years. High Counselor Aelthis's crystal body flickered. Our mathematical models show that your species lacks the fundamental qualities necessary for leadership or even meaningful participation in galactic affairs. You are too short-lived to develop proper wisdom. You have no telepathic abilities. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your physical capabilities are below average. War Marshal Krugnak's mechanical voice buzzed. Your military organization is chaotic. You fight among yourselves. You have no unity of purpose like our hives. You would be a liability in any serious conflict. Ambassador Lyrinth's energy form pulsed. Your emotional patterns suggest instability. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This is dangerous, Speaker Zaldrun nodded. The Council has discussed your species extensively. We offer you two choices. First, you may accept status as a protected species. We will oversee your development and ensure you do not harm yourselves or others. Second, you may reject our protection and face the consequences of an unguided species in a complex galaxy. Lee Daeho felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice calm.
What would being a protected species mean?
Vextar's grin widened. You would surrender your weapons and your right to independent space travel. Selected humans would be allowed to serve in minor roles throughout the galaxy, under proper supervision. Your homeworld would be managed to ensure optimal development. You would be safe, fed, and protected from the dangerous realities of galactic politics. In other words, Kim Taemin said quietly, slavery with better food. The chamber fell silent. Several alien beings made threatening gestures. Dr. Park Hyojin quickly stepped forward. We request time to consider this generous offer. This decision will affect all of humanity, and we need to consult with our leaders on Earth. High Counselor Aelthis's form shifted. Calculating. Acceptable. You have 30 standard galactic cycles to decide. This is more time than most species require, but we account for your species' slower thought processes. As they were escorted back to their ship, Kim Taemin whispered to his companions, "Did you notice? They're all so sure they're superior, but they're also very predictable. Each species acts exactly like you'd expect based on their biology. The lizards think with their teeth, the crystals think with math, the insects think with their hive minds." Lee Daeho nodded slowly, and they assume everyone else thinks the same way they do. Dr. Park Hee-jin smiled for the first time since they'd arrived. That might be useful information. Their small ship undocked from the massive station and began the journey back to Earth. Behind them, the galactic powers continued their ancient routines, confident that they had just encountered another inferior species that would soon bow to their superior wisdom. They had no idea what was coming. The emergency meeting room on Earth buzzed with tense conversations. Leaders from every nation sat around a massive table, while Captain Lee Daeho and his team presented their report. On the main screen, images of the alien council members looked down at the assembled humans like judges deciding a criminal's fate. "So our choices are slavery or destruction," said the president of the Americas Federation. "Not much of a choice. There's a third option," said Admiral Choi Nari, standing at the head of the table. She was Earth's highest-ranking military officer, a woman who had risen through the ranks by solving problems others couldn't. "We don't fight their strengths. We make our weakness our strength." The room fell silent. The British Prime Minister leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Dr. Park Hyojin activated a holographic display showing alien behavioral patterns that Kim Taemin had recorded. "Every alien species we met follows predictable patterns based on their evolution. The Velkari lizards think in terms of dominance and strength. The Thesaurine crystals process everything as mathematical probabilities. The Krog insects work as a unified hive mind. Their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness," Kim Taemin added. "They're so specialized that they can't think outside their basic nature. A Velkari can't imagine solving a problem without force. A Thesaurine can't make a decision that goes against mathematical logic." Admiral Choi Nari smiled. "But humans? We're generalists. We adapt, we improvise. We do things that make no sense to a specialist mindset. They think this makes us weak and chaotic." "You're suggesting we pretend to accept their offer?" asked the Chinese premier. "Not pretend," Lee Daeho said. "We really accept it, but not the way they expect." 3 weeks later, Captain Lee Dae-ho returned to the alien council station. This time his ship carried more than diplomats. Dr. Park Hye-jin had assembled a team of Earth's most creative minds: artists, chefs, musicians, teachers, and engineers. Their cargo hold was filled with what looked like simple human cultural items. Overlord Vextar greeted them with the same toothy grin. "Have you reached a decision?" "We have," Lee Dae-ho replied. "Humanity accepts conditional integration into the galactic community. However, we request the opportunity to demonstrate our potential contributions through cultural exchanges and joint exercises." High Counselor Aeltis's crystal form flickered with calculation. "Interesting. You wish to prove your worth despite mathematical evidence of your limitations. This is illogical but entertaining. We shall observe your attempts." The first demonstration took place in the station's cultural center. Dr. Park Hye-jin and her team set up what they called human experience stations. At one table, a chef named Kim So-ra prepared dozens of different meals using the same basic ingredients, each one completely different from the others. Alien observers watched in mild confusion as she created spicy food, sweet food, cold food, and hot food from identical starting materials. When they asked how this was possible, Kim So-ra smiled and said, "You just try different things until you find what works." At another station, an artist named Yoon Ji-woo painted portraits of the alien visitors. But instead of trying to copy their appearance exactly, he painted what he called emotional impressions, showing how each being felt rather than how they looked. A Valkyrie warrior posed for his portrait, expecting a fierce image showing his strength. Instead, Yoon Ji-woo painted him as a protector watching over smaller creatures, showing the caring nature hidden beneath the scales and claws. The warrior stared at the painting for a long time, then asked if he could keep it. The third station featured a teacher named Lee Mi-young, who ran what she called impossible problem workshops. She gave alien visitors puzzles that had no correct answer and asked them to find solutions anyway. A group of Thessalonian mathematicians became frustrated when she asked them to solve the question of what color happiness should be. They kept insisting the question was meaningless. Lee Mi-young nodded and said, "That's the point. Sometimes the best solutions come from problems that don't make sense at first." War Marshal Krugnak watched these demonstrations with growing irritation. "This is meaningless chaos," he announced. "There is no efficiency, no clear purpose, no measurable outcome." "Exactly," said Dr. Park Hye-jin. "That's what makes it human." The military exercise came next. War Marshal Krugnak insisted on testing human combat capabilities. He arranged a simulation where his best warriors would face a small human military unit in a mock battle. Private Yoon Jae-sung led the human team. He was young and looked unimpressive compared to the alien warriors. No claws, no natural armor, no telepathic abilities. His soldiers carried basic weapons and wore simple protective gear. The aliens set up a standard military scenario: capture an enemy position while defending your own base. The Krog warriors formed precise formations and moved with perfect coordination. Their strategy was flawless according to every military textbook. The humans did something completely unexpected. Instead of following any recognizable military doctrine, they split up and each soldier started doing something different. One began building impossible devices from spare parts. Another started cooking food and sharing it with civilian bystanders. A third began telling jokes over the communication system. The alien commanders watched in bewilderment as the human strategy appeared to be complete chaos. But then strange things started happening. The soldiers sharing food learned valuable information from the civilians. The one telling jokes distracted enemy communications and boosted friendly morale. The improvised devices created unexpected tactical advantages. When the simulation ended, the humans had achieved their objectives through methods that no military computer could have predicted. They won not by being stronger or more organized, but by doing things that made no sense until they suddenly did. Ambassador Lear-Nth watched these events with growing interest. As an energy being, they could sense emotional patterns and thought processes in ways the other aliens couldn't. What they observed in humans was troubling. Every time humans encountered a problem, their mental patterns changed. They didn't just apply existing solutions, they created new ones. Even more disturbing, they seemed to get better at this process each time they practiced it. After the military exercise, Lear-Nth approached High Counselor Aeltis privately. I must discuss an anomaly in my observations. The crystal being's form shifted to show attention. Proceed. The humans are not performing within predicted parameters. Each time they encounter a challenge, their capability metrics increase. This should be impossible according to our models of biological limitations. Explain. Watch. Lyranth replayed sensor data from the human demonstrations. In their first cultural presentation, their efficiency was 34% of optimal. By their third presentation, efficiency had increased to 67% of optimal. During the military exercise, their tactical effectiveness improved by 23% during the simulation itself. Aelthis's calculations began running at high speed. This suggests rapid adaptation capabilities beyond normal biological parameters. But our initial scans showed no special neural structures or genetic modifications. That is correct. They achieve these improvements through methods I cannot quantify. They call it learning from mistakes and trying new things. But the speed and scope of adaptation exceeds all known biological limits. Meanwhile, engineer Kim Tae-min was conducting his own observations. While everyone else focused on the cultural exchanges, he studied alien technology, social structures, and decision-making patterns. He noticed something the aliens themselves seemed unaware of. Each species had developed incredibly advanced capabilities in their areas of specialization, but they had also developed blind spots. The Velkari were so focused on strength that they couldn't imagine winning through cleverness. The Thyceran were so logical that they couldn't adapt when situations became unpredictable. Captain, he reported to Lee Dae-ho privately, I think I understand why they're so powerful and why they might be vulnerable. They're like master craftsmen who only know how to make one thing perfectly. But we're like people who are pretty good at figuring out how to make whatever we need. Dr. Park Hae-jin overheard and nodded. Every species here thinks in terms of what they are, but humans think in terms of what they could become. As their permitted time on the station neared its end, the human delegation prepared for the final council session. They had demonstrated human creativity, adaptability, and problem-solving skills, but the alien leaders still seemed unconvinced. Overlord Vextar dismissed their efforts with a wave of his clawed hand. Amusing entertainment, but hardly evidence of meaningful capability. But Ambassador Lyranth was no longer certain. The energy patterns they had observed suggested something unprecedented, a species that could systematically exceed its own limitations. High Counselor Aelthis was also troubled. The mathematical models were showing increasing error rates when attempting to predict human behavior. This should have been impossible. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge the fundamental assumptions upon which galactic civilization had been built for 10,000 years. The emergency council session took place in a smaller chamber, away from the usual crowds of observers. Only the 5 most powerful alien leaders attended, along with the human delegation. The atmosphere was tense in a way that Lee Dae-ho had never experienced before. Overlord Vextar's yellow eyes glowed with anger. Enough games. Your species has had its chance to prove its worth. We see nothing but chaos and inefficiency. The time has come to make your final choice. Protection or exile. High Counselor Aelthis's crystal form pulsed with rapid calculations. There are anomalies in our data that require explanation before we proceed. The humans are performing outside predicted parameters. War Marshal Kroganak buzzed with irritation. They won a single military simulation through random luck. This proves nothing. Ambassador Lyranth's energy form shifted nervously. I must disagree. My observations suggest something unprecedented is occurring. Speaker Zaldrun raised a silver hand for silence. What are you all talking about? Explain these anomalies clearly. Dr. Park Hae-jin stepped forward. If I may, honored council members, I believe we can clear up this confusion. With your permission, I would like to present a formal analysis of what you've observed. Vextar growled. More human tricks and word games? No tricks, she replied calmly. Just the truth about what makes humans different from every other species you've encountered. She activated a holographic display showing brain scans and behavioral data. Every species in this galaxy has evolved to excel at specific tasks. The Velkari developed perfect predatory instincts. The Thyceran created flawless logical processing. The Krog achieved perfect collective coordination. The alien leaders watched with mild interest, unsure where this was leading. But humans evolved differently, Park Hae-jin continued. We didn't develop one perfect ability. Instead, we develop the ability to develop abilities. Our brains are designed not to be good at one thing, but to become good at whatever we need to be good at. High Counselor Aelthis's form flickered rapidly. Impossible. Biological systems require specialization for optimal efficiency. You're right, said Engineer Kim Taemin, joining the presentation. Specialization is more efficient. A Velkari warrior will always be stronger than a human warrior. A Thyceran calculator will always be more logical than a human mathematician. A Krog collective will always be more organized than a human group. Then you admit your inferiority, Vextar snarled. No. Kim Taemin smiled. We admit that you're better at being you than we are at being you. But we're better at being us than you are at being us. And more importantly, we're better at becoming whatever the situation requires us to become. Captain Lee Daeho stepped up to the display. Let me show you what we mean. Honored Overlord Vextar, you are undoubtedly a superior warrior. But what happens when the problem can't be solved by fighting? He changed the hologram to show various scenarios. Here's a situation that requires delicate diplomatic negotiation. Your instinct would be to intimidate or threaten. A human would try to understand what the other party really wants and find a mutually beneficial solution. Vexitar's claws extended slightly. Weakness and cowardice. Perhaps, Lee Daeho agreed. But it works. Here's another scenario. A technical problem with no known solution. High Counselor Aelthis. Your logic engines would analyze all existing data and conclude that no solution exists. The crystal being pulsed. If insufficient data exists for a logical solution, then no solution is possible. But a human would say, let's try something crazy and see what happens. Kim Taemin added. Most of the time it won't work. But sometimes we stumble across solutions that pure logic would never find. Private Yoon Jae-sung spoke for the first time in the formal council. In our military exercise, your strategies were perfect according to every rule of warfare. You should have won easily. But we changed the rules while we were playing. War Marshal Krognak's mechanical voice buzzed. Changing rules during combat is illogical and dishonorable. Maybe, Yoon Jae-sung shrugged. But it works. Dr. Park Hee-jin brought up new data on the display. This is what Ambassador Lyrinth observed during our demonstrations. Watch the learning curve patterns. The hologram showed human performance metrics over time. In every activity, humans started poorly but improved rapidly. More importantly, they improved in unpredictable ways, developing new approaches that didn't exist in any database. You see, she explained, other species learn by adding new information to existing patterns. Humans learn by changing the patterns themselves. We don't just get better at doing the same things, we develop entirely new ways of doing them. Ambassador Lyrinth's energy form pulsed with understanding. This explains the prediction errors in our models. We calculated based on static capabilities, but human capabilities are dynamic. High Counselor Aelthis ran new calculations at increasing speed. If human learning rates continue exponentially, they will eventually exceed specialized species in their own areas of expertise. This is terrifying, suggested Lee Daeho gently. The crystal being's form went completely still. Unprecedented. In 10,000 years of galactic history, no species has demonstrated unlimited learning potential. Overlord Vextar slammed his clawed fist on his chair. Enough! So humans can learn quickly, so what? They're still weak, short-lived creatures with no natural advantages. That's where you're wrong, said Kim Taemin. He activated a new display showing technological innovations from the past month. These are improvements we've made to our own technology just since arriving here. We studied your ship designs, your energy systems, your material science. The display showed human ships that were no longer purely human. They incorporated Velkari armor plating, Thyceran computer systems, and Krog communication networks. But they had been combined in ways their creators never imagined. We took the best ideas from each of your species and mixed them together. The result isn't as perfect as any single component, but it's more versatile than all of them combined. Speaker Zaldrin leaned forward with interest. You've created hybrid technologies? Not just technologies, Dr. Park Hee-jin said. Hybrid approaches to every problem. We learned Velkari directness, Thyceran logic, Krog coordination, and energy collective intuition. Then we combined them with human adaptability. She showed videos of humans working together in ways that mimicked and improved upon alien methods. Human teams that functioned like hive minds when coordination was needed. but could instantly switch to individual creativity when innovation was required. Impossible. War Marshal Krognak buzzed. Species cannot change their fundamental nature. You can't, agreed Captain Lee Daeho. But we can. That's our fundamental nature, and we don't have a fundamental nature. We become whatever we need to become. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 10,000 years, galactic civilization had been built on the principle that each species contributed its unique strength to a stable hierarchy. The idea that one species could master multiple approaches threatened the entire system. Ambassador Lyranth spoke slowly. If humans can adapt and learn without limits, what prevents them from eventually surpassing every other species? Nothing, Dr. Park-Hyjin admitted. But that's not our goal. We don't want to replace you, we want to learn from you, and we want to teach you what we've learned about learning itself. High Counselor Aelthis's calculations reached a disturbing conclusion. If other species adopted human adaptability techniques, the current galactic order would become obsolete. Overlord Vextar stood up, his full height intimidating even in the spacious chamber. Then humans represent a contamination threat to galactic stability. They must be eliminated immediately. Wait, said Speaker Zaldrin. Perhaps we should consider the possibilities rather than just the threats. What possibilities? Vextar snarled. That these chaotic creatures will teach our perfectly evolved species to become as confused and inefficient as they are. Kim Taemin smiled. Not confused, flexible, not inefficient, adaptive. Imagine if your warriors could think like diplomats when needed. Imagine if your computers could make intuitive leaps beyond logic. Imagine if your collectives could also function as individuals. War Marshal Kroganak's form went rigid. Impossible. The hive mind is perfect unity. Individual thought creates chaos. Or, suggested Private Yoon Jae-sung, it creates new ideas that the hive mind never could have reached on its own. The debate continued for hours, but the lines were clearly drawn. Some council members saw opportunity in human adaptability. Others saw only threat to everything they had built their civilizations upon. Finally, Overlord Vextar made his position clear. The Dominion has maintained order for 10 millennia, through the principle of biological hierarchy. Specialized perfection creates stability. Human chaos threatens this order and must be eliminated. High Counselor Aelthis's final calculation appeared on their crystal form. Probability of human adaptation eventually destabilizing current galactic structure, 94.7%. Probability of successful human elimination, 67.3%. Probability of galactic improvement through human integration, 12.1%. The mathematics are clear, Aelthis concluded. Humans represent an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Ambassador Lyranth's energy form pulsed sadly. The council chamber erupted into chaos as Overlord Vextar's declaration echoed through the station. War Marshal Kroganak's insectoid form clicked with approval, while his communication systems began sending mobilization orders to Dominion fleets across the galaxy. The contamination will be eliminated, Vextar announced. Human adaptability threatens the natural order. They will be destroyed before their chaos spreads to other species. Captain Lee Daeho remained calm despite the death sentence just pronounced on his entire species. We understand your decision. We request safe passage back to Earth to inform our people. High Counselor Aelthis's crystal form flickered with rapid calculations. Granted. You have 72 standard cycles to prepare your final communications. This is more mercy than most condemned species receive. As the human delegation was escorted back to their ship, Ambassador Lyranth watched with what might have been regret. The energy being had found human unpredictability fascinating, but even they could not argue against mathematical certainty. The journey back to Earth took 18 days. During that time, massive alien fleets began moving through space, converging on Earth's solar system. The Dominion had decided to make humanity's destruction a demonstration, a warning to any other species that might consider challenging the established order. But on Earth, Admiral Choinari was not preparing for defeat. In the months since first contact, she had been working on something the aliens never suspected, a complete strategic analysis based on their own revealed weaknesses. They think this will be a conventional war, she explained to the assembled Earth Defense Council. Ships fighting ships, weapons against shields. Superior technology defeating inferior technology. That's exactly what we're not going to give them. Dr. Park Hyejin had spent her return journey analyzing every interaction with the alien council. Each species is predictable because their evolution made them perfect at one type of thinking. Vextar always chooses the most aggressive option. Aelthis always follows mathematical logic. Krognak always seeks maximum efficiency. Engineer Kim Taemin had been busy as well. I've been studying their ship designs and tactics for months. Every vessel is perfectly optimized for its intended role. Their battle formations are flawless according to established military doctrine. Their weapons are incredibly powerful. So how do we fight them? Asked the president of the African Union. Admiral Choi Nari smiled grimly. We don't fight them. We confuse them. The First Dominion fleet arrived at Earth's edge exactly when their calculations predicted. War Marshal Kroganak commanded personally, leading a force that could have destroyed 100 human worlds. His ships formed perfect battle formations, their weapons charged, their coordination flawless. They expected to find human ships arranged for a desperate final battle. Instead, they found nothing. Earth's orbital defenses were silent. No human fleets moved to intercept. The planet's communication channels were quiet. Sensor scans showed human cities functioning normally, as if their inhabitants were unaware that death had arrived. Curious, buzzed Kroganak. Perhaps they have accepted the inevitability of defeat. High Counselor Aelthis, observing through quantum communication, ran calculations on human behavior patterns. Probability of human surrender 3.2%. Their psychological profiles suggest they would resist even overwhelming odds. Overlord Vextar commanded the second wave, larger and more heavily armed. Begin bombardment of military targets. We will show them the futility of resistance. But when the alien weapons fired, something unexpected happened. The shots hit their targets perfectly. Empty space where human installations should have been. Every military base, every defense platform, every strategic facility had been evacuated or disguised. Private Yoon Jae-sung, now promoted to colonel, watched the alien bombardment from a hidden command center deep underground. Phase 1 complete. They're shooting at shadows. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had spent months preparing for this exact scenario. Instead of building stronger defenses, they had learned to make their defenses invisible, mobile, or fake. The real human military assets were hidden in ways the aliens couldn't imagine. Ships disguised as asteroids drifted among the asteroid belt. Weapons platforms masqueraded as space debris. Command centers operated from locations the aliens would never think to look. Begin Phase 2, Admiral Choi Nari ordered. Suddenly, alien ships throughout the fleet began experiencing technical problems. Nothing dramatic, just small random failures that forced them to reduce efficiency. Communication glitches that weren't quite bad enough to justify retreat. Navigation errors that were almost within acceptable margins. Engineer Kim Taemin had spent months studying alien technology, learning to exploit the weaknesses that came with perfect specialization. Valkyrie systems were incredibly powerful, but vulnerable to subtle frequency manipulations. Thyceran computers were perfectly logical, but couldn't handle truly random input. Krog communication networks were flawlessly coordinated but collapsed when fed conflicting signals. What is happening? Demanded War Marshal Krognak as his formation efficiency dropped from 98% to 87%. Minor system malfunctions, reported his technical staff. Nothing critical. All systems remain functional. But the cumulative effect of dozens of minor problems was major disruption. Ships began falling out of formation. Communication became unreliable. Weapon systems required constant recalibration. High Counselor Aelthis analyzed the situation with growing alarm. These failures follow no pattern. Random system degradation of this type should be impossible. The probability of natural occurrence is effectively zero. Meanwhile, human forces were implementing tactics that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they were psychological warfare specialists, spreading confusion and doubt throughout the alien fleet. Captain Lee Dae-ho commanded a small ship that appeared on alien sensors as a harmless cargo vessel. But as it passed near alien formations, it broadcast signals that exploited the specific psychological vulnerabilities of each species. 2 Valkyrie ships. It transmitted scent markers that triggered territorial aggression responses, causing them to become suspicious of their own allies. To Thyceran vessels, It sent mathematical paradoxes that forced their logical systems to waste computational power. To Krog units, it broadcast conflicting priority signals that disrupted their collective coordination. "This is not warfare," protested War Marshal Krognak. "This is chaos and disorder." "Exactly," replied Admiral Choi Nari via hijacked communication channels. "Welcome to human warfare." Dr. Park Hye-jin's cultural analysis had revealed another crucial weakness. The Dominion species had never fought an enemy that used their own strengths against them. They were accustomed to enemies that fought with different but predictable methods. Humans did something unprecedented. They adopted alien tactics and then improved them through creativity and adaptation. Human pilots flying captured alien ships moved in formations that looked like Krog hive patterns, but with subtle variations that confused enemy identification systems. Human computer viruses mimicked Thyceron logic structures while introducing impossible contradictions. Human psychological warfare used Velkari dominance displays against Velkari warriors. The result was an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, using familiar methods in unfamiliar ways, achieving impossible results through means that defied analysis. "We are fighting ghosts," reported one Velkari commander. "They appear to be us, but they are not us. They know our methods better than we do." Ambassador Lear Nth observed the battle with growing fascination and horror. "The humans are not just adapting to our tactics, they are evolving past them in real time." The turning point came when Private Yoon Jae-sung led a boarding action against a Dominion command vessel. Instead of the violent assault the aliens expected, the humans used techniques borrowed from every alien species. They approached with Krog-like coordination, infiltrated using Thyceron mathematical precision, fought with Velkari tactical aggression, and adapted with uniquely human creativity. The result was a boarding party that seemed to anticipate every defense and counter every strategy. "How?" demanded the captured Krog commander. "How do you know our defensive protocols better than we do?" Yoon Jae-sung shrugged. "We watched you for months. We learned everything you know. Then we figured out how to do it better." But the real breakthrough came when human forces began demonstrating something that terrified the alien leadership more than any weapon. They began teaching other species. Enslaved races throughout the galaxy had been watching the human resistance with growing hope. When human communication systems began broadcasting adaptation tutorials, lessons in human-style creative problem-solving, the response was immediate and electric. On a dozen worlds, oppressed species began applying human techniques to their own situations. They stopped trying to overthrow their masters through superior force and began confusing them through unpredictability. Thyceron-slave computers began introducing creative irrationality into their logical systems. Velkari subject species started using diplomacy and cunning instead of raw strength. Krog worker drones began thinking as individuals while maintaining collective function. The negotiation took place on the same space station where the crisis had begun, but everything had changed. The Grand Council chamber that once held hundreds of confident alien rulers now hosted a much smaller, more uncertain gathering. Ambassador Lirenth's energy form pulsed with nervous patterns as they addressed the assembled leaders. "The mathematical reality is undeniable. Continuation of hostilities will result in complete destabilization of galactic civilization." High Counselor L. Theiss displayed probability calculations that made their crystal form flicker rapidly. Human adaptability techniques have spread to 847 subject species across 234 systems. Traditional control methods are proving ineffective. The hierarchy is collapsing. Captain Lee Dae-ho sat across from them, no longer the uncertain diplomat who had first visited this station. Months of war had changed him, just as it had changed everyone else involved. "What exactly are you proposing?" Overlord Vextar remained defiant despite his weakened position. "The Dominion does not negotiate with inferior species." "With respect," said Dr. Park Hye-jin, "we're not inferior anymore. Neither are the species you've spent centuries calling inferior. That's the whole point." War Marshal Krognak's mechanical voice carried an unusual note of uncertainty. "Explain your terms." Admiral Choi Nari, participating through quantum communication from Earth, spoke clearly. "Complete restructuring of galactic governance. No more hierarchy based on supposed biological superiority. Cooperative councils where every species contributes according to their abilities and learns according to their needs." The chamber fell silent. What the humans were proposing wasn't just political change, it was the complete transformation of galactic civilization. Engineer Kim Taman activated a holographic display showing the new government structure they envisioned. Rotating leadership based on expertise rather than species dominance. Joint technology development where everyone shares knowledge instead of hoarding it. Cultural exchange programs that teach adaptability techniques to any species that wants to learn them. Impossible, Vextar snarled. Some species are naturally superior. This is biological fact, not opinion. Private Yoon Ji-sung, now wearing the insignia of a full colonel, stood up. Sir, with respect, that's exactly the kind of thinking that got us into this war. Every species is superior at something. The Velkari are amazing warriors. The Thisran are incredible mathematicians. The Krog are perfect coordinators. He gestured to the alien leaders. But none of you are good at everything. And more importantly, none of you are good at becoming good at new things. That's not an insult. It's just a different way of being intelligent. Dr. Park Hyejin took over the explanation. What we're proposing isn't the replacement of specialization with chaos. It's the combination of specialization with adaptability. Imagine Velkari warriors who can also think diplomatically when needed. Picture Thyceran computers that can make intuitive leaps beyond logic. Consider Krog collectives that can also function as creative individuals. High Counselor Elthys ran rapid calculations. The efficiency gains would be significant, but the risk of system instability is outweighed by the benefits, Kim Taman finished. We've already seen it working. Some of your own people have been experimenting with human techniques. The results speak for themselves. He showed data from the war that shocked the alien leaders. Krog units that had adopted individual initiative showed 23% improved problem-solving ability. Thyceran systems incorporating human intuition had discovered mathematical solutions that pure logic couldn't reach. Even Velkari warriors using diplomatic approaches had achieved strategic victories impossible through force alone. Ambassador Larenth's energy form brightened with understanding. You're not trying to make us human. You're trying to teach us to be more than we currently are. Exactly, said Lee Daeho. Every species has incredible potential that's been limited by the assumption that biological nature is destiny. We've proven that destiny can be chosen. Speaker Zaldrun, who had been silent throughout the negotiations, finally spoke. What guarantees do we have that humans won't simply become the new dominant species? If you can adapt to anything, what prevents you from eventually surpassing everyone else? Nothing, Dr. Park Hee-jin admitted honestly. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to make everyone capable of surpassing everyone else, including us. When everyone can adapt and grow, no one stays permanently on top. She showed them historical data from Earth. Human civilizations have risen and fallen throughout our history. The difference is that we learn to see this as natural and healthy, rather than threatening. Success comes from contribution and innovation, not from maintaining permanent dominance. War Marshal Krognak's form shifted uncomfortably. This concept is alien to hive mentality. Permanent hierarchy ensures stability. Colonel Yoon Jae-sung smiled. Sir, I've been working with some of your modified hive units. They've discovered that temporary leadership based on expertise actually creates better stability than permanent hierarchy. When the best individual for each situation takes charge, the whole hive performs better. The negotiations continued for days. The alien leaders struggled with concepts that challenged everything they had believed for millennia. But the evidence was undeniable. Human techniques worked, not just for humans, but for any species willing to learn them. The breakthrough came when Ambassador Larenth made an unexpected proposal. I wish to personally undergo human adaptability training. The chamber erupted in shocked responses from all species. Energy beings were considered among the most evolved in the galaxy. The idea that they would voluntarily submit to lower species instruction was unprecedented. Are you certain? Asked High Counselor Elthys. The psychological effects of such training are unknown. Precisely why I wish to try it, Larenth replied. Fear of the unknown is itself a limitation to be overcome. Dr. Park Hee-jin smiled. We'd be honored to work with you. What followed was the first formal demonstration of human teaching methods with an alien student. Larenth learned not just human techniques, but human ways of thinking about learning itself. The energy being discovered that by temporarily adopting human perspectives, They could perceive problems in ways their evolved nature never allowed. When they combined this with their natural energy manipulation abilities, the results were extraordinary. "I have achieved impossible resonance patterns," Lyranth reported after a week of training. "By thinking like a human while being an energy entity, I can create solutions that neither species could develop alone." This demonstration convinced the remaining skeptics. One by one, the alien leaders agreed to trial programs testing human adaptability techniques with their own people. High Counselor Elthis was the most surprising convert. The crystal being discovered that adding human intuition to their logical processing didn't create chaos. It revealed mathematical patterns that pure logic couldn't detect. "Fascinating," they reported. "Human irrationality contains hidden rationality. Their creative leaps often land on correct solutions through methods that defy analysis." Even Overlord Vextar eventually agreed to limited cooperation, though he insisted on maintaining Velkari warrior traditions. He was shocked to discover that human adaptability actually enhanced rather than replaced his species' natural abilities. "They do not make us weak," he admitted grudgingly. "They make our strength more flexible." The formal agreement took months to negotiate, but when it was finally signed, it represented the most significant change in galactic civilization since the formation of the Dominion. The new Galactic Cooperative Council operated on principles that would have been unthinkable before humanity's arrival. Leadership rotated based on expertise rather than species supremacy. Technology and knowledge were shared freely rather than hoarded. Every species was encouraged to learn from every other species. Engineer Kim Tae-min headed the new Joint Technology Development Program, where Velkari engineering combined with Thesaron mathematics and Krog coordination to create innovations none could achieve alone. Colonel Yoon. Jae-sung established training academies throughout the galaxy where beings from all species learned human adaptability techniques, while teaching their own specializations to others. Dr. Park Hee-jin became the first director of interspecies cultural development, overseeing exchange programs that created hybrid approaches to everything from art to medicine to space exploration. Admiral Choi Nari commanded the new Cooperative Defense Forces, where mixed-species crews used combined tactics that made the old Dominion fleets look primitive by comparison. 5 years after the war that wasn't really a war, Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Harmony. His crew included Velkari engineers, Thesaron navigators, Krog coordinators, energy being communicators, and humans filling roles that needed adaptability. Their ship itself represented the new galaxy, a fusion of technologies and techniques that no single species could have created. It was faster than any Velkari vessel, more logical than any Thesaron computer, more coordinated than any Krog collective, and more adaptable than any human ship. "Captain," reported his Thesaron science officer, "we're approaching the edge of known space. Sensor readings suggest previously undiscovered civilizations in the next system."